Hey everybody, Mr. The Fanboy here, finally back for another video, and this time, this is my salute of Impact Wrestling on Pop TV and Lucha Underground Season 2. Before I start off, I'm going to start off with Impact Wrestling first, but before I start off with Impact Wrestling, I'm going to say right off the bat that Impact Wrestling on Pop TV and Lucha Underground Season 2 are the best wrestling programs on television currently, with Lucha Underground probably being number one best. But these both shows since their debuts back in January have been awesome. I try never to miss an episode. I haven't really been in the mood to be reviewing any of the episodes, but man, and I'm gonna review some of my favorite some of my past archived episodes of Impact Wrestling from this year and hell even previous years. Same with Lucha Underground. But like I said, since their debut, both TNA and Lucha Underground have made Tuesdays and Wednesdays awesome night for professional wrestling. Professional wrestling. With that being said, let's start off with Impact Wrestling. I'm going to start off with the bad first. Already, right off the bat, Robert Roode and Eric Young have left TNA, and I am deeply saddened by that, because you talk about two of probably the best wrestlers in TNA. Eric Young, probably the best the best heel in wrestling currently, one of the best heels in wrestling currently right now, and Robert Roode, one of the best all around wrestlers in TNA. TNA, both of these guys are finally leaving TNA. Eric Young, he's already debuted on the garbage NXT show. I haven't seen it. I read about it. I'm already disappointed with that, but I talked more about that in my WWE rant, which I'm gonna upload along with this video when I'm done recording it. Um, but so that's number one. That's the first bad thing. The second bad thing is something that happened weeks ago, and that was the firing of Mr. Anderson. And I'm not even mad at TNA for this. I'm mad at Anderson. The stupidity of Anderson. This is what cost him his push in WWE back in 2007. Back in 2007, when Mark Melrose pretty much exposed everything about WWE, the drugs, the steroids. Mr. Anderson, Mr. Anderson and Finley mocked Mark Melrose, called him a goof, said there was no truth to what he was saying, no truth to what he was saying. Then Anderson, a couple of months later, gets busted for steroids, and he admits right here he was using it to nurse an injury, proving what Mark Melrose said was true, and this got him suspended and pretty much killed his push in WWE. Killed his push in WWE. So, in TNA, he got fired for, I think, some kind of drug test, for failing a drug test. This guy, you'd think he would have learned from his time in WWE. I'm not even mad at TNA for this. I'm mad at Anderson for this. TNA, that normally that's good. TNA, you can only congratulate them for patting down on these drug tests, because you saw what happened with Hardy years ago when he came out stoned on pay-per-view. So you can only actually congratulate TNA for this. But I'm just mad at Anderson. He was in the line for a good push too, for a push, and Anderson is like Stone Cold, The Rock, and Diamond Dallas Page rolled into one, and I would have loved to have seen him in the title mix now, but man, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not even mad at TNA for this. I'm mad at Anderson, the stupidity of Anderson, how he never learned his lesson from WWE years ago. Next, of course, is the next problem. Oh yes, next is Will Ospreay, who debuted on, I think, the Maximum Impact tour, and of course he made his televised debut in the King of the Mountain match, and it's recently been announced that he's been signed by New Japan Pro Wrestling. New Japan Pro Wrestling. Speaking of New Japan Pro Wrestling, since last year I've been waiting for Micah to make his debut on Impact Wrestling on Pop TV, but it turns out he departed from TNA late last year to join, either late last year or early this year, to join New Japan Pro Wrestling. To join New Japan Pro Wrestling. Um, Next is the X Division. Next is the other X Division. I like Andrew Everett. I like Andrew Everett, but I kind of want I kind of wanted Mandrews to challenge I kind of wanted Mandrews to challenge Trevor Lee for the X Division Championship. Trevor Lee for the X Division Championship. I wanted Manic to be TNA X Division champion, but he's gone from TNA, which I'm still kind of pissed about. Pissed about. But I wanted Mandrews right now, and Andrew Everett down the road will get his shot at the X Division Championship. So I'm kind of disappointed. I'm also disappointed that Gregory Helms, back on the when he's told Tigre Uno his title reign was coming to an end, he was going to manage another wrestler to take the title off of Tigre Uno. I wanted Gregory Helms himself to wrestle, so I'm kind of disappointed that he hasn't wrestled. That he hasn't wrestled yet. That he hasn't wrestled yet. That he hasn't wrestled yet. So not really satisfied. Not really satisfied with the X Division, which brings me to my next problem: is TNA's roster is not as big as it was last year with all of these departures. It's not as big as it was last year. TNA, in my opinion, is much better this year, but I like last year better. I like the roles, the character roles several of the wrestlers were in, and I like the larger roster they had last year. And I hope whatever this investor problem is, I really don't care that much. I really don't care that much into it. I really haven't been looking that much into it, but I hope whatever this investor garbage, whatever it is, it gets sorted out. Sorted out. Also saddened by the departure of Velvet Sky. Velvet Sky from Impact Wrestling on Pop TV. On Impact Wrestling. Um, of the beautiful people, Madison Rayne, I don't like. She's not that good of a wrestler. She's a great character, but she's not that good of a wrestler. Then you got Angelina Love, who I can't stand. Happy she's gone again. But you have Velvet Sky, who's probably like the only one I actually like. I'm sad to hear her departure from Impact Wrestling. So pretty much all of these departures are pretty much already the bad things about Impact Wrestling. Now let's get to the positives. And the positives already, the first positive already is I love what they've done with the Matt Hardy character. Going all the way back to the I think it was the third episode of Impact Wrestling on Pop TV. It was the third or fourth episode where Hardy turned heel. Love what they do with what they've done with the Hardy character. Like I said in my previous video where I talked about wrestling on Impact Wrestling on Pop TV, where I talked about how Matt Hardy throughout his entire wrestling career, WWE, TNA, heel or face, he's always done things for other people. Now Matt Hardy only cares about Matt Hardy. He looks out for numero uno and does things that benefit him. Like I said, I love what they've done with the Matt Hardy character. And while I prefer Matt Hardy as a face in EC3, as the heel, one thing I love about Matt Hardy as the heel and EC3 as the face is that EC3, and should I say the champion now, Drew Galloway, a young guy in TNA, can be the face. Detractors of TNA always criticize TNA for pushing old guys. A young guy like EC3 and Drew Galloway get to be the faces of TNA. Speaking of Drew Galloway, love Drew Galloway as TNA heavyweight champion. I have a couple of problems with it, but I'm going to start off with the positives of Drew Galloway being champion. The first positive, but like I said, was once again Drew Galloway is another young guy. See, I love Matt Hardy. I love Matt Hardy, and I love Lashley when they was pushing him as a top babyface. But him, Jeff, Eric Young back when he was a babyface, and Bobby Lashley as a babyface. These guys are like old; they're getting up there in age. So it's good to see Drew Galloway, a young guy, do it. That's the first thing I love about Drew Galloway. Second, I love Drew Galloway because you can see in the interviews he's passionate to be TNA heavyweight champion. He's passionate to be TNA, and he wants to change people's perception of TNA, which is another positive of TNA. I love how Drew Galloway, Rockstar Spud, also said the same thing in an interview. These guys are actually happy to be in TNA. No more of that. They don't bash WWE like I would if I was in the interviews, but no more of this. Oh, I enjoy TNA, or either oh I don't like TNA, but I wish I was in WWE attitude. None of that attitude. These guys are happy to be in TNA. They take pride in being TNA. They take pride in being champion, and that's the second thing. The third thing I like about Drew Galloway is that here's another problem I've had with TNA for a long time now. It's not as big as a problem as with WWE, but one problem I've had with TNA is racism. And believe it or not, it's actually not towards African Americans, because you've had R-Truth, who I often forget was an NWA heavyweight champion, and you just recently had Lashley as world heavyweight champion. It's every time there's a foreign wrestler, pretty much a Hispanic wrestler like Apollo or Hernandez. Hernandez probably a better choice. A better choice. They always group them together with another foreign wrestler in some kind of foreign stable. They never, guys like Hernandez and Homicide Hispanics were never able to win the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. So I'm happy Drew Galloway, a European wrestler, a Scottish wrestler, is now the TNA heavyweight champion. Heavyweight champion. And yet Magnus before him, who was also, but Magnus, his reign wasn't good. So what's his name? No, these are the positives. Speaking of the negatives is I wanted Drew Galloway to win the title from Matt Hardy at a big time show like Slammiversary coming up, or Bound for Glory at the end of this year, or maybe on a big time Impact special in an actual match, not cashing in after Matt Hardy had just wrestled an awesome three-way with Jeff and EC3. Speaking of Jeff, love the Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy feud. First, back in WCW in 2000, in late 99 and 2000, they did a feud with Booker T and his brother where Booker T's brother, Stevie Ray, kicked him out of Harlem Heat and got Ahmed Johnson, Big T. Ahmed Johnson renamed him Big T and got one of the No Limit Soldiers from Masterpiece hip hop group, and formed a new, and Clarence from WWE, from the Nation of Domination, and formed a new Harlem Heat, and took Booker T's flaming tights away, took his music away, and even took away the the T in his name for a while. I like this is what the Hardy Boy brother versus brother storyline reminds me of, and I love brother versus brother storylines, and loving the Matt Hardy, loving what TNA has done with this storyline. WWE did this back in 2009. I thought that was disappointing, but this right here was good, especially that I think it was that epic I Quit match they had a couple of weeks ago. The pretty much the Hardy Boy feud is probably one of my favorite feuds. It's one of my favorite feuds in TNA. Now, it's probably one of my favorite feuds in TNA, next to the Knockouts which is the next best thing. The next best feud in TNA was the Knockouts. The entire Knockouts. First off, you had Gail Kim in her feud with Maria. Let's talk about Maria. Maria probably has to be the best character in TNA, and she's one of the only wrestlers to get over with me based on her character alone. She's barely wrestled any match in TNA, but her character alone has won me over. I love the Maria character, and love the non-wrestling feud between her and between her and Gail Kim, and how she won the ladder match to win control of the Knockouts division. And speaking of control of the Knockouts division, Jade upsetting Gail Kim for the TNA heavyweight champion for the TNA heavyweight championship. The Knockouts division is one of my favorite things in TNA. Is one of my favorite things in TNA now. Like I said, the Hardywood feud and the Knockouts are pretty much my favorite feuds. My next favorite feud, which recently just ended, was the Eli Drake Grotto feud with Eli Drake switching the Feast or Fire briefcase and giving Grotto the fire race, and Grotto first coming back as Ordang under a mask, and then Corgan forcing Grotto and Eli Drake to fight it out in a ladder match. If Grotto wins, he gets to keep his stay in Impact. He gets to stay in Impact Wrestling. Then after that, Al Snow attacking Grotto. Al Snow accusing him of having no respect for the business. I'm interested to see where this feud is going. Then of course, Eric Young, like I said, has just been an awesome heel, and happy. I'm disappointed that Eric Young left. I'm disappointed and sad with Eric Young left TNA. I'm disappointed and saddened by Eric Young leaving TNA. But one thing I'm happy about is Eric Young putting over someone on the way out, putting over Bram for the King of the Mountain Championship on the way out, and Robert Roode doing the same with Abyss and Crazy Steve and Rosemary. Pretty much what probably has to be the best. Which probably has to be the best tag team or stable in TNA when it comes to characters, and that's Abyss, Crazy Steve and Rosemary. And happy to see Abyss win another title, even if it is another tag team championship. I think Abyss should have at one point in his career. I think he was world heavyweight champion, but I mean, and that's become world heavyweight champion. I mean, hold the belt for like a long time. Every time he's won the belt, he's always quickly lost it. I mean, so it's good to see Abyss get a win another belt, And speaking of, and up until the Beer Money had lost the titles, I was loving the Open Challenge. The Open Challenge, which led to some of the best probably the best wrestling matches in TNA besides any X Division match. Besides any X Division match or any explosion matches, which I'm going to get to those in a minute. Explosion matches. These have probably led to some of the best wrestling matches, and one thing I love, led to the face turn, the reformation of the bromance, and the face turn of Jesse Goddard, and speaking of changing characters, Bobby Lashley. I like Bobby Lashley better as a face, but I love his new heel character, and I also loved his short-lived feud with the Pope, and now he's feuding with Galloway over the TNA Heavyweight Championship. That's pretty cool too. Tyrus, I love what Tyrus, just like Maria. Tyrus, he's really not that good to me in the ring, but his character alone has won me over, man. It's over with me, man. His character alone. Love the Tyrus character. And next is so like I said, you've got so much awesome stuff in Impact Wrestling. You had the Monsters Ball match between the Wolves and Decay, which has probably been one of the best feuds in TNA. Then of course you had the no disqualification match between Beer Money and Decay, with Decay kidnapping Gail Kim earlier in the night. You had the no disqualification match between Jimmy Havoc, British wrestler Jimmy Havoc versus Abyss. That's another. I forgot to list that in my negatives of TNA, and that was not signing Jimmy Havoc to like a full-time contract. He was only there for a couple of appearances. But I would love to see Jimmy Havoc in I would like to see Jimmy Havoc back in TNA full time, and so like I said, now for let's go back to some of the negatives, and that's negative. Let's go back to some of the negatives. First negative I have, well, I mentioned Mandrews not being on TV, but the other negative I have is that Rockstar Spud and EC3. Why? Like I said, I like EC3. I'm a huge fan of EC3 as a wrestler, but I do not like his character. His character just isn't sympathetic to me. But I'm a huge fan of EC3 as a wrestler. And Rockstar Spud, I don't like his current heel. I don't like his current heel character, even though his promos have been awesome. His promos have been awesome, especially the most recent episode of Impact where he talked about how he represents the Hardy name better than Jeff Hardy, and how Jeff Hardy will pay for what he did to Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy. But I do not like the Rockstar Spud heel character. I was actually hoping Rockstar Spud and EC3 would now, after feuding for pretty much 2 years, would put their past behind them and become a tag team again. But no, they had Rockstar Spud turn on EC3 for all the harm he's caused him in previous years. Years. But like I said, I love what Rockstar Spud has done with his promos lately. But like I said, I do not like the heel Rockstar Spud character. I much prefer him as a face. I much prefer him as a baby face. Huge fan. But he was still a huge fan of Rockstar Spud. And speaking of I've not been enjoying, up until recently, I haven't been enjoying the Mike Bennett EC3 feud. That was until recently, where Mike Bennett, just recently on the most recent episode of Impact Wrestling, Mike Bennett upset EC3, and EC3 snapped and hit him with a chair, chair. Cause I forgot that EC3, he was still unpinned and unsubmitted. I forgot that when Hardy beat him, that was a last man standing match. So he was still unpinned and submitted. I actually forgot about that. The Kurt Angle farewell tour, I'm not gonna say much about that. The Kurt Angle farewell tour, that was awesome. Once again, some of the best wrestling matches were in the farewell tour. And this is where the heel turn of Bobby Lashley started. Like I said, I love Bobby Lashley's new character. He's just a guy who wants to hurt people. He doesn't care about the adulation or respect of anyone. He's going around and just beating people up. I love the Bobby Lashley character, and I love the feud between him and Pope. I hope Pope wrestles more often. He's Pope. The Pope is actually, I remember him being on my list of wrestlers I wanted to return to TNA. But I wanted Pope. He was returned to TNA as a commentator, but I also wanted him to wrestle some matches too. And I loved his no disqualification with Bobby Lashley. But pretty much, before I continue, TNA has finally got to the point where they've combined good wrestling with good characters and story. And that's what I want in professional wrestling. That's what I want in professional wrestling. Like I said, Impact Wrestling has been awesome. The negatives pretty much would be the roster is not as big as it was last year, and I don't like the roles several characters are in this year versus the roles they were in last year. And another thing I didn't like was another thing I don't like is, while I love the new set design they have for the Impact Zone, I was kind of disappointed they've returned to the Impact Zone after pretty much every other show was in Birmingham. You had this giant epic arena. Now you come back to the Impact Zone, even though the new redesigned Impact Zone looks awesome. But like I said, I want TNA to make money, and you can't make money at an Impact Zone. I'm disappointed to hear that Slammiversary this year will once again be at the Impact Zone instead of in Dallas, which I was hoping for. Um, um, and of course, see, and I like the Impact Zone, but I was hoping TNA would only return here for occasions, like the one night only shows, or for any special occasion. Do not like get comfortable here. Try to keep going to the big arenas. I want TNA to become bigger. I want TNA to grow. I want TNA to grow to become bigger. They can't do that if you constantly keep coming back and staying at the impact zone. So that's another negative. That's another negative. But like I said, Impact Wrestling has just been awesome. Like I said earlier in this review, I'm gonna review some of my favorite episodes of Impact Wrestling. I've just been tired and not just been in the mood for reviewing wrestling. But like I said, Impact Wrestling on Pop TV has been awesome. Like I said, Impact Wrestling and Lucha Underground are the best wrestling programs on TV today. Today, and I'm also happy to hear Impact Wrestling. They've signed they've signed how many they've signed, let me check it again. They've signed 8 new wrestlers, and their names are actually 7 they've signed 7 new wrestlers. There's a female wrestler named Allison Kay, another one named Cherry Bomb, then a guy named Pepper Parks, who I think is from NXT. He's now Braxton Slutter, Sylvester Lefort, who is now Basso Baraka, and Marcus Lewis, who is now Baron Dax. They've signed those guys and another indie wrestler named Caleb Conley, who according to most people he's wrestled with Evolve, but I know him. He was an indie wrestler here. He was an indie wrestler here in Georgia for NWA Anarchy a couple of years ago. So I'm happy here TNA has signed him to a contract. So like I said, TNA is TNA is doing awesome right now. Now for Lucha Underground. Lucha Underground is probably, if I were to choose between TNA and Lucha Underground, which is the best, Lucha Underground is probably the best wrestling program on TV. Lucha Underground has a much bigger roster, has a much bigger roster, has a much bigger roster. If I were to, even though I love the storylines and feuds in TNA, Lucha Underground has better feuds. You have the return of Dario Corto and um Matanza as Lucha Underground Heavyweight Champion, and of course you have the Trios Tag Team tournament, the Trios Tag Team tournament. So storyline wise, Lucha Underground probably wins over TNA, and Lucha Underground, if I were to choose, is probably the best wrestling program on TV. When I first tuned into Lucha Underground season 2, first off, before I even start talking about season 2 of Lucha Underground has already exceeded my expectations for what I expected. This is way better than season 1 of Lucha Underground. Lucha Underground have already outdone themselves. Have already outdone themselves. The only negatives I have with Lucha Underground are pretty much the money problems. Believe it or not, right now is the various money problems I've heard, and I've heard, sadly to say, this past week's episode got a saw a drop in ratings and viewership, so I'm kind of disappointed with that. But other than that, Lucha Underground, all positives, man. The roster, the roster and storylines are way better than last year. Take truth, when I first tuned into Lucha Underground, I didn't care. I only tuned in to see PJ Black and all my favorite wrestlers from Lucha Underground. It wasn't until the episode Aztec Warfare, which in my opinion is already the best, is one of the best episodes of Lucha Underground, where they had this huge epic battle royal between everybody except for Angelo Ghost, Son of Havoc, and Iblis. They had this epic battle royal between the entire Lucha Underground roster for Phoenix Stars Lucha Underground heavyweight championship, and midway towards the end of the battle royal, this juggernaut of a wrestler named Matanza shows up out of nowhere and wipes out the entire Lucha Underground cast and quickly squashes Phoenix Star to win his Lucha Underground heavyweight champion. Then on the next episode of on one of the following episodes of Lucha Underground, Mil Mortez and Matanza, two of the strongest people in Lucha Underground, battle it out, and the match ends in spectacular fashion with Mil Mortez giving giving Matanza downward spiral through the stage, and Lucha, like I said, Lucha Underground, probably, like I said, they're the best wrestling program on TV. They've combined great characters with great wrestling. I initially had a problem with the supernatural elements, but come to think of it, I don't have a problem with it anymore because it fits in with the theme of the television network they're on. The El Rey Network is a channel that shows martial arts movies and superhero horror films like the Toxic Avenger. So these fantasy elements like the disciple guy ripping out the other guy's heart like in Mortal Kombat, that actually fits in with the theme of Lucha Underground. So I no longer have a problem with it. And one thing I love about Lucha Underground is doing something. It's the only promotion that is doing something new with wrestling. You have TNA and other promotions, which in my opinion are bringing professional wrestling back to what it's supposed to be. But you have Lucha Underground doing that, but also trying something new, trying new ways to do professional wrestling, and that's one of the things I love about Lucha Underground. And like I said, this roster, you got PJ Black, Mil Mortez, Tejano, Rey Mysterio, El Azteca, the guy with the green tights, Aerostar, Angelo Ghost, Son of Havoc, Ivelisse, Chavo Guerrero, Brian Cage, the Mac, Joey Ryan made his debut, Kill Shot, who debuted in an awesome match with Johnny Mundo, Jack Evans, and Solomon Crow, aka Sammy Callahan, will be joining this roster soon. So like I said, awesome roster. I hope Manic and Low-Key debut in this promotion in the future. And speaking of people debuting, another negative is MVP burning his bridges with Lucha Underground. He was supposed to be introducing a role, and he just recently burned his bridge by doing something. I forgot what it was. I think he gave a spoiler of a show after he was already signed, but now MVP won't be appearing with Lucha Underground. And going back to and another thing I loved about Lucha Underground was they had Rey Mysterio. I think it was Rey Mysterio. It was either Drago or Phoenix Star or Aerostar. I keep forgetting who the other wrestler was, but they had them on ESPN to promote Lucha Underground. I thought that was really cool. I want Mexico to turn Johnny Mundo and Jack Evans into Hispanic Lucha Libre stars, to turn them into mega Lucha Libre pro wrestling stars like they did Marco Corleone, aka WCW's and WWE's Mark Jindrak. But like I said, we don't have that much to say about Lucha Underground. I'm also gonna be, like I said, I review the episode from last week, but I'm gonna review this past week's episode of Lucha Underground and some of my favorite editions of some of my favorite episodes of Lucha Underground from this year. But like I said, I don't have much to say about Lucha Underground, but the show is just awesome, and I try never to miss an episode. Like I said, Lucha Underground and TNA Impact Wrestling on Pop TV are two of the best wrestling programs on TV, with Lucha Underground probably being the number one best if I had to choose. Well, like I said, this was my salute of Impact Wrestling on Pop TV and Lucha Underground. Alright, I'm done.